there's a hyperliquid strategy that's kind of a life hack for locking in profits. And that's what we're going to be covering in this video. And to start off with, it's worth mentioning that ETH's been experiencing quite a few oscillations in its price. On the good side, it's been pumping quite a bit, but it also experienced a bit of a pullback. So it's a good opportunity to dive into this strategy that differs a bit from classic take profits that traders might employ. So I'm on the Hyperliquid dashboard on DeFi Saver, and I'm looking at this price action that ETH experienced from July the 1st to July 4th. Over this period of time, ETH pumped from around 1,566 to 1,814, give or take. And during this price movement, we can see that it experienced a few pullbacks here and there. But interestingly, a question one might pose is, when would you take profit in this scenario? So it increased by $250, which is quite a rally. And one would have to wonder, okay, when would I actually take profit here? When would I cash out? Of course, nobody would blame anybody for doing it at 1,600, 1,650, 1,700, but that's what we're kind of addressing with this hyperliquid strategy. The idea of, I have to choose when I'm gonna take profit. When am I gonna lock in the gains here, even though the market might still keep moving positively for me and for my position. And that's why I want to introduce the trailing stop strategy. Now, this is a strategy that doesn't exist directly on Hyperliquid. This is only available through DeFi Saver. And this strategy essentially lets you activate it for an existing position, for example, a long, and then input a percentage at which it will track the price movement of ETH, for example. And as soon as it pullbacks by the amount of percentage you input or more, it's going to close the position down and essentially take profit. It's going to close it down. So the example I want to give here is ETH's price movement, right? So it started the rally. The price was around 1,566. It reached 1,643. This is around a 5% increase. So if you were to set a take profit spot at 5%, this is where your long would be closed. And you would lock in a solid profit, but you would still miss out on over $150 of a price increase. So maybe 10%. And it did pump to that amount, 1718, which is around the 10% pump from that 1566 entry. But it still kept increasing by nearly $100. So it kept going. And then a significant pullback started happening around this 1807, I should say, range. Now, here's the interesting thing. How would a trailing stop perform in this movement? Well, all of these pullbacks that happened at each of these highs, none of them were 2% or more. They were all under 2%. As a matter of fact, the only time that it actually pulled back by 2% or more is once it reached this high here. It fell to around 1750, would have been the 2% pullback once it reached this high right here. And that's where the trailing stop would have stopped and locked in your gains. So that's something to keep in mind. If you had a trailing stop active at the 1566 mark, it would have allowed you to ride all the way through 1600, through 1700, and when it reached the top of 1807, pulled back to 1750, it would have locked in those gains. And that's kind of the main benefit of trailing stop, not having to guess, pick and choose when the take profit will happen. You just let it ride the wave, ride the pump, and then let you cash in sort of automatically there. Now, it's worth being fair and mentioning that the danger zone of trailing stop are wicks. So kind of quick, short-lasting dips in price. Those are enough to trigger a trailing stop, especially in low liquidity markets where somebody might come in with a significant amount of leverage for the opposite position of your position. or the opposite direction of your position. And that dip might be enough to actually trigger your trailing stop. Even though it might be a very short lasting wick, the price might just pump back up again, continue its upward movement, but your trailing stop would have activated. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you activate a trailing stop, if the price moves up, but not enough, and it experiences a 2% pullback, you will be at a loss. At the same time, that is kind of protection against your position being wrong, since it's going to cash you out earlier, but it's worth keeping in mind. So it's not a perfect strategy in the sense that you will always earn 100% from it. We should be fair and say that there are some risks associated with it, but also worth noting that if you're going to be trading some large liquidity assets such as ETH, Bitcoin, and others, we're probably not going to be seeing a lot of very sharp, drastic wicks occurring. And that's kind of the main power of this strategy, letting you ride the pump and then exit when a pullback actually happens without you having to actually take profit earlier. Now, of course, this also applies if you're going short. It's going to follow the price decrease, and then it's going to take profit once your asset goes up in price by, let's say in this case, 2% or more. And again, a reminder, this is something that's available through Hyperliquid on DeFi Saver. You're going to find all the same strategies, all the same functionalities in your perps as you would directly in Hyperliquid, but just with some extra tools on top.